Okay. That's the name of the title of the talk today, or lesson. But there we go. Hey, that's perfect. You know, Francie does such amazing things with these slides for me, because I told her, it was kind of last minute because I was kind of busy this week, and I told her I need a picture of two old men talking, and the joke is actually under a tree, and I didn't tell her that, and look at that. Isn't that amazing? That is just amazing. That's just serendipitous, and it's just wonderful. Anyway, the joke is this. It's real quick. Two old men were talking under a tree, and one guy said to the other, said, "You know what, this getting old is for the birds. I just ache all the time, and every time I move, it just hurts. And I feel every minute that I've lived in life." And the other guy looks at him and says, "Really? I feel like a newborn." And he said, "Oh yeah? Why is that?" He said, "No hair, no teeth, and I think I just wet my pants." That was the joke I was waiting for Russell and Bonnie for. I was kind of stretched on time this week, so I'm going ahead and give it. Anyway, and it had nothing to do with his job or anything. I just thought it was a joke that he had. Anyway, today's lesson is God's gifts versus greed. And when you hear that title, what do you think of first? When you hear that, God's gifts versus greed, what do you think of first? Greed. Yeah, what? Who said that? Who? There you are, in the hat. Yeah. Nathan said it. She said greed, which is true. That's what the human mind goes to. And when we think of greed, what do we think of? You remember the song, Money, Money, Money? Huh? Yeah, good. He did that by ear this morning. He had never heard that song before, and he did that. Good job, Mark. I got a lot of people to thank for this week. So there we go. We think of greed usually, and from our human mind, and we think of money, don't we? But the whole title was something different. God's gifts versus greed. And in Western society, we do agree or think that greed involves money. But from the elevated consciousness, we see God's gifts in the title, and what follows the verses means little. If we think about it if we're in church, if I would have asked you that question, what does that title mean to you after this lesson, right after the lesson, I bet you would have said God's gifts instead of greed. And that's because we have shifted our consciousness in that time. So it's easy to shift our consciousness, but our human thinking, what we're doing. But I want to tell you this from the Revealing Word, Charles Fillmore's, and some people aren't going to like this, but it's okay. This is his definition of to get freedom from greed. I like it personally, and I like it before I was a minister, so don't say I'd like it just because I'm a minister. Freedom from greed, to get freedom from greed, is a result of the habit of tithing, which establishes a consciousness of giving and keeps one's mental channel free from material selfishness. What is your idea of greed? I know you're having one in your mind. If you don't want to speak it, I'll speak it for you probably. Pretty much that. When it comes to selfishness, doesn't it? Yes. But when we look at somebody else and try to determine that, we're determining something that we really usually know very little about. Isn't that true? We don't know if it's selfish or not because we're not in that person's position. But we can look at people that are really well-to-do and say, "Oh man, they're selfish. Gosh, they got so darn much, and they just keep it all for themselves." But when we look at our own situation and we think, "Oh man, you know what? Finances are pretty tight, Bill. You're the treasurer of this church, but I really can't tithe this week. I'm sorry." Right? I mean, it's different for them and us. But we're trying to learn that there's not a them and us. There's a oneness, right? God's gifts are so much more than money, though, right? In fact, let's name some of God's gifts. We were asking for some in our prayers this morning. Health, thank you. There's a lot of health. Well, it wasn't there this morning. I almost got up because I almost thought that's too much health. But we're very good at health in this one, aren't we? In this church, aren't we? About healing, aren't we? So I have no qualms that those people are going to be healed in the right and perfect way.
The 12 powers.
12 powers is a gift. love and acceptance, nature, peace, joy, kindness, yes. Prosperity, yes. In what ways?
In every way.
Yeah, in every way. It doesn't have just to do with money, does it? Abundance, a lot of people like to use abundance instead.
Giving.
I'm sorry?
Giving.
Yes, giving is one of God's gifts.
Gratitude.
All these are God's gifts, and you can think of a lot of them when you think of just that part of the title, God's gifts, can't you? She did a great job on this. I have a lot of people to thank for this week. Like I said, I don't want to do that yet. And, we're going to go to the property, and I'm going to thank them there too. But we have done a lot of the property this week, the new campus, and we're going to do more this next week, finish that actually project, and then we're going to go start putting utilities in the building. But, a lot of people have had a part to play in that. I do want to, since Lynn is here, I want to point her out, because you guys wouldn't be able to park there today if Lynn wasn't here. She brought her tractor and hedgehog out there. Hedgehog, that would have been neat. I don't think you own a hedgehog.
Stand up. She hates attention. Make her stand up.
Lynn is right there. She doesn't have to stand up if she don't want to, but Lynn is right there. And what was your friend's name that came with you? Jeff. He came out and helped too, and he was real nice. And I appreciated them because I had to leave them. They were out there for quite a few hours bush hogging that place, so we have a place to park today. So anyway, there's a lot more people, and I'll get to them all here in a little bit. Sam helped me actually. Where's Sam? Sam?
Right here.
Okay, good. Don't hide from me. Sam helped me there. On the new drive, we've got a drop off right after it, so we had to get some dirt in there so we could drive without ruining some transmissions. So we're all set to go with that. This is Charles Fillmore's definition of the revealing word of a gift. Every good gift and every perfect gift is from above, coming down from the Father of lights, which is James 1:17. But he goes on, I told you before, if you listen to me, I don't know if you do or not, but anyway, yeah, I know you do, that he only had one in the revealing word, one where the Bible told us the only definition, and this is an exception. He goes on. God's greatest gift to man is the power of thought, through which he can incorporate into his consciousness the mind of God. So that's what I was saying when I'm talking about how we can shift from the title of this lesson, God's gifts versus greed, to thinking, when we see something like that, to thinking about God's gifts instead of greed overpowering. You see? That's what he's talking about, Charles Fillmore. We have an active role in what our mind decides to focus on, though, don't we? We get to choose what we focus on. I went through the drive-thru, and I still don't know what happened this morning at McDonald's, which I usually do every morning to get Francie and the kids some breakfast. And behind me, there's this truck that stopped, and he was going through the drive-thru too. And then this lady comes and goes to the other drive-thru, jumps out, she's hollering at him, and like, "I'm calling 911, And I said there, I don't know what's going on. And so I didn't get involved because it looked like they were sorting it out themselves. And it's things like that where we get to, sometimes we experience those and we get to choose what we're going to think about what's going on. So obviously she was upset, and I don't know what the two guys in the truck were doing or if they had done something or anything, but we get to choose what's going on. Now, when I turned around and left, she was following them. It didn't look like she was going to try to ram them or anything, so I don't know if they got it worked out or not. But what you do when you see something like that is up to us. So I just chose, and Francie's real good at this, to just send them blessings and know that it's all going to work out the way it's supposed to. But we get to choose. We have an active role in what we choose. We were not intended to live a passive life. It's interesting, in fact, I'm going to get that here, I guess next, but we're not intended to live, what passive is, just going along, not really taking part of doing it and all that stuff. We've got an interesting law that is trying to be overturned, and this is what I thought was next. The headlines sometimes, our news headlines are often misleading if we fully read or listen to the report. Have you noticed that? Have you read reports, especially online, that they're totally misleading sometimes? Now I'm trying to think of the one I was remembering for this. I'll tell you this one. This wasn't the one, but there was an article that said I don't know who's trying to pass it, whether it's the government, obviously, trying to pass a law to make just for the rich or something. I don't know what it said exactly. It said something that draw your attention like that, you know. You read the whole article, it's about passive income, which now, Mark, your people that are taking the CPA exam would be mad at me because I should know this. I'm trying to forget what that number is. But anyway, there's a on your tax, everybody sees on their tax forms every year, and I'm going to think about it. It's on the top of my head. Sees on their tax forms every year if you have an alternative minimum tax, AMT. That's what it is. Alternative minimum tax. They were trying to do away with that, and that's what it said. Now, how many people in here have a 401k or have any type of investment in the stock market? Not as many as I thought. How many have had that? Raise your hand up higher so I can see. How many have had that before at any time, an investment in the stock market? Okay, cool. That's almost everybody. So when you invest in the stock market, what are you looking to do? Make money, sure. Make your money grow, right? That is passive income. Okay? If you go over a certain amount, that AMT, that alternative minimum tax, is going to hit you, and it hits you hard.
That's greed.
Huh? That's greed?
Stock market's greed, trying to get something for nothing.
What? Well, some people look at it like that way, but let me show you a different way to look at it here in a minute. That's good. I'm glad you said that. And when we take on the news report, what is our mindset going in is the main part of what the news report I want to focus on. It's kind of like the Bible that we've discussed before. You know, what is your mindset going in? Are you going in looking for a passage to prove somebody wrong? Are you going in to prove your point? Are you going in knowing something that I'm going to read from this book or anything is going to be good and I'm going to find good in it? Okay? Because if you're going in for the first part of that, what I said, prove somebody wrong or something, you may find what you want, what you're looking for. But all that's doing is building something inside of you that is negative, to be quite honest. That isn't doing you any good. Were we looking for this is further what I was saying. Were we looking for a gotcha moment? Or are we looking for the good that can come out of anything? Now notice the way I said this. Are we looking for the good that can come out of anything? Because not every action is good, is it? There's a lot of things that happen that really we can't say good. Because, you know, for a while there, unity people, and I said it too, is everything, good is, what is it? Good is, all is good? Everything is good. It's all good. That's what it is. That's what I'm thinking about. It's all good. We used to say that, remember? It's all good. Most of the sayings in unity that we've had over the years, I would be able to be fine with throughout. But that one never did struck me right, because everything that happens isn't good. But there can be good in everything that happens. Pulled from everything that happens, okay? And there needs to be an understanding of what we're saying when we say that. Some people say it's all good, and they think that everything's supposed to be good. Everything can be good. And the good, this is important too, and the good that is in everyone. So if we don't look at people as having the Christ within them, no matter what action they have done, then what are we going to see? We're going to see the action over the person, aren't we? So we're not going to be seeing the Christ in them. What we use is the Christ in them. Are we? No, you can't see both. You can't see this Christ in somebody and see them as a murderer, right? Now, they may have done something, an action that was not good, that they're going to have to, there's something that in this physical life that they're going to have to work out in this physical life. I'm not saying that you let them go on that, but I'm saying that you have to realize that they're a child of God also. It's like I told you last time we got together that Kanye West's cousin, he was saying about him, how he committed murder, and he's in prison. He says he doesn't stop loving him because of that. You know, it'd be the same with our family member, right? We wouldn't stop loving him. I know some of you well enough that you have had experiences, not even a family member in your life, where you love the person, try to help them out, and then, you know, they don't seem to like they want, it's not like they don't want the help, but they just don't turn around for some reason. And for whatever reason it is, it's still their choice to do that. But that doesn't mean you bail them out all the time, right? But you do see the Christ in them all the time, and that you can always see that they can, at any moment, bail themselves out, right?
Yes.
Right. Okay. As long as we are looking for the gotcha moment, focusing on that not so good in the situation, or not seeing good in the people involved, we are focusing on the greed part of the equation. Right? Left? Okay.
Read.
Spiritual gift. This is the other part, the end of Fillmore's definitions that I'm using today. The spiritual gift. The manifestation of spirit in each of the members of the Christ body according to each member's receptivity, each man's receptivity, giving each member a particular work in the development of the individual. This sounds, and sometimes can be confusing, so I want to go over it a little bit. Francie, actually, it's so funny. I had wrote this talk more than a week ago, and Francie was writing hers for last week, and she said that she was using this quote, or this thing. So last week, I hope you know that this is the same thing that you saw last week. But she was using it in a different context. But I want to go ahead and explain what Charles Fillmore is talking about here. The manifestation of spirit in each of the members of the Christ body. So what does that mean? In each of the members of the Christ body. There's a lot of thoughts you have in your mind, isn't there? A lot of thoughts in your mind, a lot of experiences that you've had in this physical life, and who knows, maybe other lives, right? I'm not saying, you just think about that for yourself. But if you had those experiences and those thoughts, I'm sure that you've released some negative thoughts about somebody or something. I'm sure you've learned how to release some of them, right? And those that you've released, what he's talking about there, we're talking about members there, okay? Those that you've released have given you relief and have raised you to another consciousness in that area. But there are some that maybe you haven't released. And so that's why we're talking about members of the Christ body. What I like to think about this, and it's maybe in health you can explain it better, as each cell in your body. Think about that. Remember when Myrtle Fillmore healed herself? How did she do it? She talked to each cell in her body. That takes a while, doesn't it? Yeah, that takes a while. And hopefully when we say prayers for healing for somebody, and I know that y'all are good at this, is we're thinking about each cell in the body of that person. So that's what we're talking about when we talk about that. I think that's the hardest part for people to understand, and the rest you can understand pretty. According to each person's receptivity, giving each cell a particular work in the development of the individual. So it took Myrtle Fillmore, 2.5 years to heal herself fully from consumption, which is called tuberculosis now. So that wasn't an overnight deal, was it? You know, we sometimes think about healing and things. Oh, it's a miracle. We're just healed all of a sudden, and that can happen. I'm not discounting that. Most healings, though, are something that we've switched our mindset. We've switched it from being the diagnosis that a doctor gave us, MD gave our body, into thinking that that's the truth of us, when we should be thinking that the truth of us is full, complete health in every way. How many people have money? Okay, I already explained this to you. In the stock market, you already know that. How many people remember pension funds? I know probably everybody here does, don't you? Remember pension funds? Come on. How many people were part of a pension fund? Did you get paid from it? You got one still in the state? You have a pension? Oh, Lord. You're lucky. You're very fortunate.
I hear that a lot.
Do you have one? Did you have one from a company, Donna?
Yeah, sure.
Did you get paid from it?
Yes.
Well, you're very fortunate too. Well, it's state though, really kind of
Yeah, I get
company?
a check every month.
a company,
Yeah.
a private company.
Boeing.
Boeing. See, we're talking the ones that are. This kind of proves my point, but the one. Okay, first of all, those of you even got.
They don't do it anymore.
Exactly, they don't do it anymore. I'm surprised. Well, I'm not surprised they cut it off. Unity had one when I started working there. They had a pension and a vested. You remember? Okay, I'll put that up. You remember people being vested? Okay, I don't know if you were part of that too, but I was part of both of those in Unity when I started. But They quit it the year after I started. Anyway, many pension funds, if you will remember, what happened to them? They're underfunded, and they lost all their money, so people didn't get paid. They don't have the money, they can't pay them, right? Right?
Is that social security?
No, it's not. I'm not talking about Social Security. Hopefully, I'm not talking about Social Security. But anyway, pensions was such a great idea. And see, this is where I'm going on a personal peeve here. This is where the government could serve very good. They have since then, although there's so few pension funds, it really is immaterial. They have since then made corporations who have pension funds fund them more. But it used to be that they were down to 30% funding. So in other words, if a company, well, who was it? Not American Airlines, but there were some big, Braniff probably did. There were some big airline companies that lost the pensions. So if you owed $100 million a company, from a company's viewpoint, and you only had to have $30 million cash to be legally doing that, how much do you think cash they're going to have to do that? $30 million. Are they going to have $100 million that they owe sitting there? No, they're not. See, that's where a government could do good. A government is us. Who? The people? The people is the government. So anyway, pension funds aren't around hardly anymore, except for state governments. Not all governments do it, but anyway, governments and some huge companies, which is a great reason to work for them, isn't it? It is a great reason to work for them. But, you have to, when somebody makes a promise to you, or you make a promise to somebody, hopefully we keep it to each other, don't we? And that's the whole idea behind a pension fund. It was a promise to people that worked for them at the time, and the company didn't keep it. Some companies didn't keep it. Now, I don't say go out. That's one of those probably embedded things, and you can hear from me probably one of the embedded things that I need to get over. That, right? During the last financial crisis in the United States faced, which was at the end of the Bush administration, the younger Bush administration, first part of the Obama administration, what happened? The government bailed out the banks, didn't they?
Right.
What happens if, say, I'm going to make for simplicity's sake, you have your 401k or whatever's invested in the stock market, you have it invested all in one company, and that company goes bankrupt. What happens? Huh? What? Yeah, you lose your money. I didn't hear what everybody said, but you lose your money, don't you?
Yeah.
You lose your money.
Yeah.
Is this going to happen for you?
No.
Is the government going to bail you out?
No.
Probably not. That's what happened in the last financial crisis, isn't it? It was mainly a housing deal, and the housing deal, the people that had the houses had a lot more stricter guidelines put on them, and what they did, they had to lose their house, didn't they? Kind of going in a different direction here. But anyway, we're going to go through it. So what part am I thinking about right now? Really, I'm kind of talking about that, aren't I? Because I'm not thinking of the God's gifts. Now, what is the God gifts out of those things? We have to think about it sometimes, don't we? What is the God's gift? That's why I'm saying sometimes that that is a God's gift, isn't it? Isn't it? It is a God's gift to have a lesson in life. Hopefully we learn it without losing more things than we'd like to lose. But it is a lesson to have, or it is a gift from God if we learn something from it. At the least, it's a gift from God to learn something from it.
Humility.
Humility, yeah.
Learn humility.
Forgiveness.
Sure. Forgiveness. All these things, see? Y'all are good. I had a revelation, actually it was yesterday morning. It's a continuation of a revelation that I've been having about our new facility. And what it is, or the part that I'm going to tell you about this morning, I'll tell you, as it evolves, I'll tell you more later. But the part about it is this morning, or yesterday morning was, and I hesitate to say this because I don't want to come across wrong. We have a prayer for our property, right? We're going to say it when we're out there. Again, we'll say it at the end of the service. But we have a prayer for our property. And part of that prayer is saying the world that works for all, isn't it? If a world that works for all, what would that mean as far as religious, from a religious standpoint? It would mean all religions, wouldn't it? It wouldn't be just Christianity or just unity people.
Religious freedom.
Religious freedom. True. What you're supposed to have, we have laws for religious freedom, but what usually does Christianity do? I'm not bashing Christianity, please. What do most organized religions do? They bash each other, don't they? Okay, so that's a better way to say it, all right? And sometimes I'll say jokes about other religions, but, if we can't laugh at ourselves, then who are we going to be able to laugh at? So, what I was thinking the revelation was, and Francie and I are still discussing it because I told her this part of it, is that I don't know if y'all have seen the interfaith circle that has all the religious symbols around it. Y'all have seen that? Some of you have, some of you haven't. About using something like that, because we want to we want people to know that this is a place for them, whether they've learned about Christianity, whether they've learned about unity or not. And to be quite honest, my Christianity is one that follows what Jesus was trying to teach. Jesus never was a Christian. Jesus was a Jew all his life. Never wanted to change from being a Jew. What did he want, though? He wanted to include everyone, didn't he? And so what did his religion do to him? They said, no, we're not going to do that, right? The leaders at the time said, no, we don't want to do that. We're special. We want to keep our specialness, right? But he never did do that to them. So if my idea is to follow what Jesus was teaching, then I want to include everyone. These are ideas of what I'm talking about. Go ahead and say these if you know them. Shalom. Salam. Shalom. Hola. Ciao. Alo. Alo. Is that how you say it? Our greetings from different parts of the world, and I don't know, let me see if she did the other one. And I didn't get up there, but Namaste was up there also. And why I'm pointing that one out is because, and you probably all know where these come from. Some of them come from religious. What does this come from?
The Jewish
faith. Muslim faith.
Don't know.
No idea.
Kenya, Africa.
You're right, it is Africa. I don't think it's Kenya, but it is Africa.
Spanish.
Spanish-speaking countries.
Italian. French.
Portuguese.
French.
I don't know if these are the other ones, but what this was pulled from, what I pulled it from was German. I mean, it could be other places too. Okay? I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that's where I pulled it from. Anyway, back on this, the reason that I want to mention Namaste, which is from
India.
Hindu religion actually. Hindi is the language. Anyway, Namaste, which is actually what most people know it by, but it's actually Namaskar is the word. I don't know how they got Namaste from that, but anyway, Namaskar is the actual word. And through studies, that is the most spiritual, meaningful way to greet somebody. Because it means so much more than just hello or whatever. And I'm not discounting these at all, okay? What I'm saying, though, is that's what it is specifically, Namaskar is specifically the Christ in me meets and greets the Christ in you. Okay? So I just wanted to point those different ways out. So if we're going to be inclusive with everybody, we're going to have to know all these. Yes, ma'am?
I have a question though. If it's Indian and it means the Christ in me sees the Christ in
Well, that's a Christian translation. Sorry. Now remember, I'm going to probably translate it to Christianity, so that's because of my upbringing. So yes, thank you.
In the Bhagavad Gita, which is the Hindu
Right.
book, it's the soul or the spirit in me honors
Right.
and recognizes the spirit in you. And Namaste is actually the Sanskrit word, and Namaskar is the Hindi
Right.
word. So that's where that comes from.
Whoops. Okay, so I wanted to tell you this. I don't know if you saw this or not. In Ireland, most of the primary schools are Catholic. Did you know that? Oh, you did? Well, good. Well, you probably already know this then. Well, to get in for a long time, to get into the Catholic primary school, which was the best schools, the secular schools were okay, but they weren't as good, or weren't as plentiful. Let me put it that way. I shouldn't say weren't as good. Weren't as plentiful. You would have to be baptized in the Catholic Church. That would get you up on the list. Okay? And it's just recently the government of Ireland stopped that from being that, because the government funds all these schools. And so, even though the Catholic Church may not, I mean, I'm going to take them at their word. They said, we haven't practiced that for a long time. It's just a numbers game. There's not enough schools for the people, for the children there. So they haven't practiced that for a long time. But when you would get baptized, you would move up on the list. So I don't know how that translates into English or whatever. You know what I'm saying? So this kind of stuff, and I'm not bashing the Catholic Church, but this kind of stuff is why people get turned off by religion sometimes. Some people in this story, to the point where they don't believe in God because that wouldn't happen if God was in charge, you know. They're doing what they have to do for their child to get the best opportunity in life, right? Right? If you and hey, I would do the same thing. I don't care what religion I was. If the Catholic Church or if whatever church was controlled the school system, the best school system, and my kids needed to get in it, I would do whatever I had to do to get them in. You know?
It still happens in other parts of the world. In Africa, it still happens.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. And
I
this
went
practice,
through that, so.
yeah, this practice probably still is happening, although the government said you can't made it illegal, although you can't do it right now. So, you know, it takes a while to change something like that, you know. So that's how people get turned off by religion. And that's why we probably, you know, even though we try to parse it in unity and say we're more spiritual than religious, it's still, there's this stigma with, I mean, we are organized. You have to be organized in some sense. We couldn't have if we had lack of organization, we sure as heck wouldn't be doing anything with the property, right? You have to have some organization. Although unity is probably the least organized as far as any of the religions because they're very autonomous. But you have to be careful about that. This is an interesting, oh, she found a map. That's cool. This is an interesting, I wonder where she got that because that's almost spot on. This is an interesting story too I wanted to tell you about. And it's something that we have to be aware of. There's a migration they've done from, I think it was from, yeah, no, it was 2007 to now, of a bunch of people in the colder climates moving to warmer climates. And that used to be, when I was a kid, that used to happen anyway. But then you had snowbirds and all that stuff, which you still have. Yet the migration is something interesting, and it's leaving a lot of places that they're leaving from a little bit, you know, not destitute, but less than they could have been if everybody would have stayed. But the interesting thing about this story I wanted to tell you about was that that number one is that when you read through the whole story, the migration, even though they made the list by how many people were leaving their city going south, if you looked at the death and the life, you know, or the newborn and the death rate, wasn't that far off on usually on most of them, but almost all of them except one, I think, which was the top 20, was the population in that city still grew. There might have been a migration out, you know what I'm saying? There's a large migration out, but the population of the city still grew. And so if that migration, of course it's going to make the southern cities where they're going a lot bigger, right? But if they were all up there and people were migrating out and yet the city still grew, what's that tell you? Huh?
You have young families that are still there that are.
No, that's not what I'm looking for. What? Births. Well, it's not.
People moving in.
Yeah, whatever. Yeah, people are still moving in. So the point is, though, the population is what? Growing at a lot bigger rate than people would like to think. And where are we positioned? We're positioned in the receiving end, right? We are right now. And if you go in, if you know anything about the construction in Atlanta right now, it is crazy. We are so fortunate to get the people we have had to do what we have done.
Yes.
And so what does that position us for? It positions us in a unique position where people are going to be coming here, Atlanta, or even in Conyers, or wherever, us the opportunity to show them something that they may be interested in. Spirituality. Looking at God's gifts instead of greed. We can become the focal point of the new era of human consciousness. We can. Especially if we have something big enough to support it. Not only are we in the forefront of human thought as far as unity's thinking and teachings, we are also in the perfect position geographically to become this. I'm going to throw something at you here in a minute that won't make you walk out, but it'll make you think about walking out. We're called to be who we are. Sam, you got my microphone on this, or my speaker on?
Yes.
Be patient with me. I want you to listen to this. It's only 2 minutes.
In this transition from a third-dimensional reality, we experience powerful energy upgrades and ascension of our consciousness. While the cosmic waves of light energy flow through and around our planet, it's recalibrating and raising its frequencies at the same time, triggering the activation of cellular restructuring and quantum makeover. As a planet, and as individuals, we are being guided, protected, and healed. We have to be aware, though, that this transition from third-dimensional existence to multi-dimensional living poses great challenges, from an intense high that creates energy surges, to deep lows of a blurry head, physical tiredness, poor short-term memory, and tearful moments. Internal conflicts may arise as if we're being pulled in different directions, or being aware of the dramas played by people around us. We may even see through the lies and manipulations of the people or society. These may leave us feeling disconcerted, confused, tired, and restless. To counter its effects, we need to rest, stay hydrated, and eat well. We're moving from a linear existence in the third dimension to hyperdimensional reality where time is quantum and would exist in the past, the present, and the future all at the same time. In fact, that's the real nature of the universe, but our four-dimensional minds perceive change as linear. Once we raise our consciousness, we start perceiving the patterns that entangle past, present, and future. In this transition, we're moving between the third, the fourth, and the fifth dimension that is full of love, abundance, flow, and balance. But how can we know?
Have you experienced any of those things that they're talking about?
Yes. Just about all of them. It's all right.
I'm sorry, have you experienced any of those things they're talking
Yes.
about?
Recently.
You know, life is funny. We all experience different things because we're in different areas and we're dealing with our human mind. But when we think of our conscious mind and what it are through a spiritual lens and what it can do, we can see that it is unlimited. And it can be unlimited to any extent. We talked about healing this morning as far as our prayer slips and things. And when we talk about healing, y'all, like I said, y'all do a great job. And so think about what you're thinking about when you're thinking about healing. And apply that thought process to all areas of your life. And we're not doing that just to become wealthy, to become fully healthy. Those are essentially byproducts of what we're doing to ourselves. And that is raising our consciousness to another level. And like I said before, unity is so important to me for this because of the fact that we are kind of like the ones that have to do this to meet that critical mass. the critical mass, when the critical mass is met, then all of humanity, the whole race switches. And so when I say that, we can look at our life and our news and all that stuff and say, we can do this. We can look at God's gifts or greed and say, well, we can't even get along with different races, you know, and that'd be looking at the greed part. But we can also, or we can look at it like when we say the word race, we're talking about what I'm talking about and what Fillmore's talking about, the human race. If we have a population boom and nobody's telling us about it, and we end up being overpopulated everywhere, because there is overpopulation in some parts of the world, China number one, but there's a lot of overpopulation, and it's a problem, believe it or not, for overpopulation. If we can't figure out how to help each other, no matter whether we're in China, no matter the color of our skin, no matter the religious sect that we belong to, and we're just thinking greed. Because we're being that selfish person, aren't we? I'm not saying go out and give everything away. I'm not saying that at all. Because you deserve everything in life. And I want you to have everything in life. But you can only have everything in life and keep it if you realize that life is unlimited in both the things and in consciousness. We are being called to do this, to lift ourselves up in consciousness, to lift the world up as a race. Each one of you here today can be a part of the new realization of the oneness in humanity. I hope that you feel that inside of you. I know that you have it inside of you. I hope you feel it inside of you. Because what we're going to do here in a little bit, 30 minutes after the service, we're going to go over to the new property. Well, we're going to go to the new property, then 30 minutes after the service, hopefully start a quick prayer service for that new property. And believe me, it's important to me. I'll tell you how important it is for me. We have my fantasy football draft today, and I'm going to miss the first part of it for it. That's extremely important. Extremely important. I'm the champion from last year. I don't want to lose it. So we are all blessed, but let us all know that after today, when we go over there and see that property, I hope you're amazed, because it's not quite done. The sidewalks aren't done, but they're going to be done Wednesday, hopefully with weather permitting and crews there and all that stuff. But I hope that you realize that you're blessed beyond measure.
Yes.
And when you realize that, there's nothing that you need, really, and there's everything that you have.
Amen.
God bless you, and we're going to not have special music today, because Warren didn't pick out a song.
And we need to get to the property.
And we need to get, yeah, that's what it is.
And you need to
All right. Well, thank you for being here today, and we're going to have our, yes, go ahead,
I'm
Sandy.
sorry, I was gonna
That's all
say
right.
something earlier when you said finding the good in something,
Mhm.
and Myrtle Fillmore, you know,
Yeah.
like tuberculosis and all that, you think, oh, but yet the tuberculosis virus is what cured mom's cancer. That's
Yeah.
what they killed the cancer with, so, you know.
And they've been doing that for a while, and I'm so happy they figured out how to do some of that stuff. You know, another thing, y'all know, you have different thoughts and everything. And so in Kansas City, they have a pretty big foundation that does a lot of research on stem cells. And stem cells is something that can really help a lot of people. And you know, don't get mad at me, okay? Don't get mad at me, please. But I'm going to tell you this because it's directly related to stem cells. First part is, stem cells could have helped my father with Parkinson's a lot, okay? Could have helped him a lot. They've proven that. But stem cells usually, not all the time, but usually are from an aborted baby, okay? And so don't get mad at me, and if your opinion is different, that's fine. That's fine. I'm against abortion personally. Unless it's the last resort, I really am. Francie and I disagree on this, and and that's fine. Yet, you know, I want it to be able to use when it happens. I want to be able to use those stem cells. Okay, you know, so you can see me as kind of a contradictory deal, right? But I think it's silly to have something happen and then not use what's there. So anyway, we all have those thoughts. I'm sure that you have something like that in your mind where when you think about it, already during your life, I know that you've shifted your thoughts about its position in life about different things. I know you have. You know, like I used before, I said I used to always think, before having kids, I used to always think that the parents should be liable for whatever the kid does. Boy, I don't think that for a second anymore. Not for 1 second.
Okay.
Maybe I should, wrong. No. Anyway, I love you all. We're going to go over the property here in a minute after we take offering and have our final prayers. Come on, Judy.